I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
Latest Brandon Aiyuk update, Mike. You have that from Josina Anderson.
From Josina Anderson, tweets within the last half hour. She says, now I'm told Patriots aren't giving up on 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk stakes per source. The question is, can New England stretch the offer they're prepared to give? If so, by how much, and how much creates sway? So basically sounds like it's coming down to the contract situation, I think, and Aiyuk is going to want
that's unclear. Is that the contract offer or the offer to the Niners?
Right.
I think it has to be the contract.
I would think so,
because last night we heard the framework was pretty much in place.
Right.
So, look, this is ultimately going to come down to where Brandon Aiyuk wants to go. Yep. This reminds me a ton. We see this a lot in the NBA, where a player basically doesn't just decide, I want to be traded, but I want to go to X team. The team trading them loses a ton of leverage, and the only leverage they really have is the contract. And what I think you've seen the last few days is the Niners have the trades in place with the Patriots and Browns. Brandon Aiyuk wants to be a Steeler.
Yep.
He said he was on the Ryan Clark podcast a couple weeks ago, and they said, what team are you playing for in 2024? He said San Francisco. If not for San Francisco, Washington, or Pittsburgh. He didn't mention the Patriots. He didn't mention the Browns. He didn't mention any of these other teams. I know some people have mentioned the Lions like sneaking in. That's not. The Niners aren't going to do that outright because they're
don't Titans be Lions.
We'll get to the Titans. The Titans love broken players. They'll trade for Deebo Samuel and free up the money for the Niners to pay Brandon Aiyuk.
After the Calf strain today.
Brandon Aiyuk wants to be a Steeler. The Steelers aren't giving the Niners enough. They kind of know the Niners are hamstrung if Brandon Aiyuk will only sign with Steelers. And I think the Niners are putting some of this out there to try to get the Steelers to up their offer. Everybody goes home happy. I'll say this on up in the offer. Money's money. I get that. You do need to have a price where you're willing to walk away. You can't give guys blank checks. They did that with Calvin Ridley. It was good discipline.
I think Taylor disagrees.
Brandon Aiyuk is not the last great receiver who will become available. Maybe he is for this season, but you have a 4-year building period with Drake May. If they get Brandon Aiyuk, and if the trade costs, I said this in our group chat last night, if you only give up one top 50 pick, I'll dance in the street. That's a great trade. But
do we get a video of that?
No, absolutely not. But if they can't get him, this cycle of wide receivers, it's him, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper was kind of floated out there, right? This cycle's over. I'm okay if they miss in this cycle. I've talked about threading the needle on when to add the guy. Next cycle's when you add DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins again, Terry McLaurin, right? This isn't the last opportunity they'll have to make this move. I'd like to see them make it now. They don't have to make it now. They shouldn't overextend to make it now. I also just don't think it's going to happen right now from everything we're hearing.
But that mentality kind of reminds me of what we talked about with a quarterback. And obviously it's not the same thing because there are elite receivers that are in the draft every single year. They're a little more available.
Not just in the draft, in free agency, for trade.
But in free agency, like with quarterbacks, you don't really want to bank on a great quarterback hitting the market because that rarely happens. And when it does, there's usually a reason. With these great receivers, if they're going to hit the market like T. Higgins, obviously, like that whole fiasco, we were talking about it. Higgins is a guy where I have some hard nose, where I'm like, he has an injury history. He's not super old or anything, but given the nature of his position, how he plays, it's discouraging. Brandon Aiyuk is like CeeDee Lamb for me. They're in the same category where it's like, this is a top 10 receiver, no significant injury history. They're young. They're versatile. Like, you can do whatever you want with them, and they can legitimately take so much pressure off your entire offense. So for me, there's not really a price other than like matching Justin Jefferson's contract. That's where I think it's kind of pushing it. But if it's just south, these contracts go up every year. As soon as Brandon Aiyuk gets paid, maybe not as soon, but CeeDee Lamb is going to surpass whatever Brandon Aiyuk probably makes.
And then DK Metcalf and then all these other guys.
And not to mention the Patriots are now in a position where they can truly draft and develop. They've done all their extensions. The only players that aren't going to be on, or at least set to be free agents in 2025, are guys you don't really think they're going to be building around. And that's where you probably
I think Jonathan Jones is the only guy that's like a notable.
And with his injury history, you're probably like expecting it might just be retirement. So the way I see it, if you're going to back up the Brinks and throw money at somebody and spend a lot of money, wide receiver is the second most important position in football. You've got your quarterback on a rookie deal. You're taking care of your veteran defenders. Now is when you take a chunk of that cap space, which you have plenty of, and you put it towards Brandon Aiyuk.
I guess my point isn't so much they shouldn't do it. And like you said, like these contracts go up. There's no such thing as a bad contract for a good player. When's the last time a guy signed one of these big money contracts and was decent, but the reaction is, Yeah, but did they need to pay him
Yeah,
that
right.
much, right?
Maybe Debo, honestly, and that's because he got hurt.
Well,
and
but
he hasn't
Debo's
been able to
not
live up
good.
to it.
Debo's like that's my point.
Yeah.
If
He's good, but he's injury prone. Like,
right,
very,
he's not
very seriously.
he's not living up to the contract.
Yeah,
like
right,
you either
right.
live up to the contract, you don't. You're not good, but not good enough for the contract. So I'm not worried about that. I guess my point is, I'm not hitting the panic button if they miss out on Brandon Aiyuk. It's unfortunate, but again, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin. If you can make the same trade and give that guy essentially the same contract, and you lose out on 6 months, or even if you lose out on one full season, most of which, again, we think will be started by Jacoby Brissett, okay, you still got the guy eventually, and you got him for Drake May.
And I've been on Aiyuk for, and it's not just me. I didn't start the Aiyuk thing, but I've been one of the people, a lot of the people saying, go get Aiyuk.
I've been several of the people.
Yeah, but go get a guy, right? And you want that guy for Drake May. You want him from your young quarterback to develop with him, have a security blanket, be that true number one in the offense. But I'm with you as far as not hitting the panic button because they've shown aggressiveness already.
Yeah,
they went for
that's
Calvin
huge.
Ridley. They're going for Brandon Aiyuk. I think there was talks where they
Tried
had
to trade back into the first round.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they've been aggressive. The front office has been aggressive for that number one wide receiver. I would love Aiyuk. I think he's great. I think he adds that element to the offense. I would overextend. I would overpay for him because you mentioned too, Taylor, the contracts move up. As soon as he signs, the next one signs. The next one signs. It's like quarterbacks where you sign him and keep. That's why Matthew Judon's so upset. At one point, Matthew Judon, I'm pretty sure, was one of the top 3 or 4 highest paid edge rushers in the league, and now he falls down just because that's where the market goes. So I like the aggressiveness. I would love Aiyuk, but you're right. The next one will come shortly.
Let me be clear. I'd overextend on the contract a little bit, not a ton. I'm not overextending on the trade. I want to get to that in a
Okay.
second. But Brian, your thoughts?
Ever since the draft, I've kind of just been like, let's roll with this group just
Yeah.
for the year and then hit next cycle. Now, Aiyuk was the one guy where I was like, okay, if he still shakes out, like, you should get him.
If
'Cause
you
I
can
agree
get him,
with
you get him.
Taylor. Like, him and CeeDee Lamb are on another level to me with, like, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. Like, Aiyuk is the guy where if he's available, you go out and get him now. But at the end of the day, I still think he's either staying in San Francisco or he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, probably more likely. So they might not.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
As far as like Aiyuk is clearly available. Will
Yeah.
CD become available? Will DK
Yeah.
become
That's
available?
I don't. I
That's
don't
my
even know.
thing, yeah.
It's tough.
Might,
It's tough
but
to
it's-
say that any individual one will. The way the league runs, the
One of them
odds
at
that
least.
none
Fair.
of them become available.
Right.
And I look at CeeDee Lamb, clearly getting a little disenchanted with the Cowboys, the way that whole saga's gone. And I don't think Jerry Jones is going to pay him and Dak Prescott. And Jerry Jones is going to not pay Dak Prescott. When it comes to DK Metcalf, the quarterback situation's uncertain there. It's a new coaching staff, new front office. We think it's going to be a new offensive philosophy. Does he want to get out and go to a system where he'll succeed? Which I think you talk about a matchup of skill sets, him and Drake May. That's a right, exactly. Taylor gets the chills. That's a really good pairing. I think if Drake May shows you a little something this year, you could really sell DK Metcalf on this. And look, maybe this is a little bit of a glass half full, rose-colored glasses take. I know people keep saying the Patriots keep getting used as leverage, and that's all this is. That's all their interest is they're getting used as leverage. I don't think they're allowing themselves to do that. I think maybe that's happening. It's not intentional on their part to like play favor to agents or whatever.
Yeah.
Eventually, like the teams looking for these receivers, the list is getting shorter and shorter. Eventually, there's not going to be that many teams that want a wide receiver, and by process of elimination, you would think the Patriots have to land
Well,
one of these
every
guys.
team that loses one just needs a new one, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're
that's
trading them for these draft picks, which they're using to draft them.
I guess.
So
but-
I think that's the trade. There's too many wide receivers. Simply put, it's economics. I'm not an expert in economics. I don't understand what happened in the stock market yesterday, but I can tell you this:
Ask Taekwon.
supply.
Ask Taekwon Thornton.
It was a tough one.
Yeah.
You just said it. It's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. There's more wide receivers than there are teams willing to pay number one wide receivers. So these guys are becoming available. So that's why I'm not hitting the panic button. One other side note in all of this isn't being discussed a lot right now, and I understand why, but it is important if this deal doesn't get done, or maybe even if it does. The Patriots signed Kendrick Bourne to a new contract 6 months ago. And honestly, the Cleveland Browns signed Amari Cooper to a new deal, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
This applies to them, too. Both of these guys are reportedly included in those trade parameters that have been set pending Aiyuk agreeing to the contract. That is a dangerous game as a team whenever you do that. And Gerard Mayo said he had a good talk with Kendrick Bourne today. But just objectively, you made an agreement with this player. And even, you sign a guy to a multi-year deal, you trade him after the first year. That always raises some eyebrows among players and agents. maybe Kendrick Bourne's cool with it. I'm sure he'd love to go back to San Francisco and play for contender, and he's been there before and all that. The Patriots need to make sure now that this is leaked. This happened with the Celtics last year. Malcolm Brogdon, a year after signing a contract, was included in trade negotiations. The trade fell through. He essentially then demanded a trade. He said, fine, you don't want me, I'm out of here. I don't think Kendrick Bourne would necessarily go that far, but you risk him being disgruntled. Agents don't see this well. Like, if you're negotiating with a player represented by the same agent, he's going to ask the question, how do I know, my guy wants to be here? How do I know you're not going to trade him in 6 months somewhere he doesn't want to be? That's not to say it's all completely broken because of this. But it's something the Patriots will need to address. We probably won't hear about it, but it needs to be addressed internally. I was surprised when I saw Kendrick Bourne's name attached to that last night.
We had these conversations this summer, too, with KJ Osborne, when we were talking about the wide receiver room and how it's going to shake out and how could KJ Osborne be a cut candidate? Well, you just signed him. That's kind of a bad look, too. Now, granted, it's different in competition versus trading someone away.
Yeah.
But I do think, and that's what's tough about the media and leaks and conversations between GMs, where it's like, okay, it's not a bad thing if you trade Kendrick Bourne for Brandon Aiyuk on the surface. And then when Elliot Wolf calls John Lynch and say, hey, we'll add Bourne in there. Let's see. Let's call this the framework from now. See what else you can get, and hangs up.
It's a Madden move.
And then,
it's
right,
an easy Madden move.
And then
you can't do that in Madden.
Yeah.
And then
You were joking. I was like, this feels unethical. I wouldn't do this in Madden. I'd be like, I
it
feel
doesn't
bad for
let
the
you
guy.
trade someone that you just signed like
right.
that.
And then it gets leaked, and it's a tough look. But at the same time, I don't think it's. I like that they had the conversation with Bourne, right? Okay,
Yeah.
this is what's happening. Here's why.
And he's
I hope
the
you
kind of guy
understand
you
it.
think would handle it well.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he wants to be a captain of this team, which is
Yeah.
also a tough look, too, where
He says he wants to be
he's
part of the
been a
rebuild.
leader, he's been here. He
Right.
comes out and stretches every single day, and maybe I jumped the gun a little bit earlier by saying that he wasn't out of practice.
Got to stir the pot, Mike.
Coming back from a torn ACL on a rainy field, you got to stir the pot a little bit. He wasn't out there. That's an objective observation. Anyway, but I do think, long story short, that if you have to make that deal, any team's going to do it. But it's a tough look for a guy, again, who has poured his heart and soul into being a New England Patriot, wants to be a part of it, wants to be a captain, etc.
Maybe he's like, hey, I'd go back to San Francisco, have some stability for the first time in like
Try and win a
3
Super
or
Bowl.
4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is a really awkward situation that
Right.
you put yourself in by putting a player out there. But these guys know football is a business. Not everyone, obviously, like Matt Judon. Some people hate the business side, and as much as you'd like for there to be a separation, things start to overlap. And with Judon, I think we all thought, yeah, he's probably the one that
He
if
makes
a
a
player's
lot more
involved,
sense,
yeah,
yeah.
because he's clearly not very happy with you. Like even today we had a kind of a weird little Judon situation where he leaves practice, comes back, and he's out of his pads, and we were like, is something happening?
Yeah.
Elliot Wolf was on the field around the same time. We were like, oh my God,
Matthew
is this
with
it?
me.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with Kendrick Bourne, like you guys said, I think that of anybody, he's probably going to be the one who lets it slide off more than someone else. But we got to keep an eye on that situation. And if he is a little bit upset by the fact that he said, I want to be part of this rebuild for a completely unproven franchise, but regime. And then you're like, yeah, but also we might kick you to not kick you to the curb, but get rid
Right.
of you.
In an interview, too, earlier this offseason with Boston.com's Kari Thompson, Bourne said someone who we would want to see the team try and go get is Brandon Aiyuk because he used to play for him. So then they ship him out for that. It's just, it's a tough look. But again, it's the business of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just considering it's a team he's been on, the same coach, and like a Super Bowl contender, you hope that he's just okay with it.
Right.
And it seems like that they had a conversation, him and Mayo, that maybe he is. So that's just, reiterating that again. Like, because it can be a slippery slope if they just start trading these guys that they're just signing.
I don't mean to sound the alarm too much either. Like, it's very possible Bourne, they talked to Bourne about it. He goes, yep, I understand. I'm good, But, again, you don't know how does the agent feel. It's honestly more the agent than him because the agents can, their clients see it and then their clients ask about, you're signing all these guys to extensions. They're all going to look at it and say, well, how secure am I? I just signed just like he did. So it's just it's another challenge for a first-year GM and a first-year front office that it's going to be something they have to navigate. I think ideally for them, this just never leaks. And I don't think that's something that leaked from New England. Right. I don't think they wanted that out there. I think they're probably upset that part's out there. Maybe not the whole interest in Aiyuk part, but the Kendrick Bourne part. But I don't know, just something that's gone under talked about there. When you talk about the human side of it, and like you guys talked about, there's a business side of it, and guys understand that. But something like this maybe alienates players that are looking for somewhere where the business side of it won't be as in their face.
I like that you related it to Brogdon, too, because in the back of their head, it's like, well, they'll offer me up for anything the next time. They might tell
Right.
me, you know, well, we just had to try it this time, but you're safe now. It's like, how do you really know for sure? That's always in the back of your head and can kind of, you know, screw again with your relationship with the team moving forward.
And with a front office that has no track record.
Yeah, like you
Right,
don't know,
yeah.
like, I hope this doesn't become a thing with them because that's going to be hard to navigate. Again, this is a really unique scenario where
Absolutely.
Bourne has played there before. You could argue it's probably a better fit for him, things like that. But you never know. And maybe he gets asked about it at some point. Maybe he doesn't. But there's so many. It's crazy how quickly we got. It was just for a while Brandon Aiyuk's available, and that was the whole story. And are the Niners going to keep him? Are they going to pay him? Are they going to trade him? Whatever. And now in like the last 36 hours, it's layers on layers on layers. I guess before we wrap up here, we good on Brandon Aiyuk updates?
I think so.
Nothing
I haven't
new,
seen
yeah, I just
anything
wanted to
new.
Make sure.
All right, so we'll wait and see. Week 1, 2024, Brandon Aiyuk is playing for the Brian
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Taylor.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Patriots. Why not? He's
Sam-
going to be a Steeler.
San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what
I'm on the
should
fence with
happen.
those
Yeah.
two.
Somebody
should
somebody
not trade him,
tweeted
but-
last night the what's that show? Mad Men meme of like John Hamm coming up with the idea, and it was like,
Oh, yeah.
What if we
what if we don't trade Brandon Aiyuk? It literally seems like they haven't considered that. And I know their cap situation's a mess. Figure it out for that guy. You know what? I'm going to say
Not a
this.
mess this year, a mess next year, because I feel like somebody's going to look it up and be like, oh, they're fine
Next
this
year,
year.
right?
It's like next year they're
Bold
screwed.
take. Bold take. If they trade Brandon Aiyuk, it's the beginning. That will go down when we look back on it. Beginning of the end of the title window.
I think so, too, because then you have to pay Brock Purdy. And is
You have to play Brock
really that
Purdy.
good
George
without
Kittle's
all these
retiring.
guys?
Kittle's getting older.
Samuel's
Debo
hurt.
struggles. McCaffrey's a running back. How long is he going to last?
Pearsall's
Offensive
already
line
hurt.
isn't good.
Trent
what if we
Williams
just-
is like 36.
What if we just traded for Trent Williams?
Yeah, right.
I mean, yeah. Sure. Fine. Okay, let's do it.
that.
But I just
There's a John Hamm meme for you.
this could be the beginning of the end of this specific window, and dare I go a step further, the Shanahan era in
I was
San
just going to
Francisco.
say a notable
if they move on
Shanahan
from him.
hater and Alex Barth.
Praying for his downfall over here.
It's not a smart move if they trade him. All right, we can go on and on about this. We'll wrap it up there.